Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon and watched the massive alien ship appear on his screen. The ship was 3 times bigger than his own vessel and covered in dark metal that seemed to eat the light from nearby stars. Strange symbols glowed red along its hull like angry eyes in the darkness. "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Amy Davis from her station. Her voice was tight with nervousness. This was humanity's first contact with aliens, and nobody knew what to expect. Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered and showed the interior of the alien ship. Jake had to stop himself from stepping backward. The creature looking at him was like nothing he had ever seen. It stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like living crystal. Its face had no nose, just 2 large black eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. "I am High Commander Zexathara of the NIGMA Empire," the alien said. Its voice was deep and sounded like rocks grinding together. "You will identify yourselves and explain why you dare to enter our space." Jake kept his face calm even though his heart was beating fast. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We're explorers from the planet Earth. We didn't know this was your space. We're looking for new worlds and hoping to make friends with other species." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like metal scraping on metal. "Friends? You are nothing but primitive mammals. Your ship is made of simple metals and powered by basic fusion. We have been watching your pathetic species for some time. You fight wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. You are barely out of your caves." Behind the commander, Jake could see other NIGMA aliens moving around. They all looked the same with their crystal skin and 4 arms. Their ships seemed to be made of the same dark metal as the outside, and everything glowed with that same angry, red light. "We may be simple," Jake said carefully, "but we've learned a lot in our short time in space. Perhaps we could talk about this peacefully. Our diplomat is aboard and would like to speak with you." The alien commander's eyes seemed to grow brighter. "Your diplomat? Very well. We will allow one of your representatives to board our vessel. But know this, human. The NIGMA Empire is expanding, and your solar system lies in our path. We will claim it whether you agree or not." Jake felt ice in his stomach, but he kept his voice steady. "I'll send Ambassador Lisa Carter over to speak with you. She's very good at working out problems between different peoples." An hour later, Jake watched the small shuttle carry Lisa to the alien ship. Lisa Carter was one of Earth's best diplomats. She had ended 3 different wars just by talking to people. If anyone could find a peaceful solution, it would be her. Jake waited and tried not to think about the hundreds of other alien ships that had appeared around his vessel. Each one was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The NIGMA Empire clearly had technology far beyond what Earth possessed. 2 hours passed before Lisa returned. Jake met her in the shuttle bay and could see immediately that the news was bad. Lisa's face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. "How did it go?" Jake asked. Lisa took a deep breath. "Not well. They think we're insects, Jake. Less than insects. They've already decided to take our solar system for their empire. They're going to strip mine our planets and use them to build more ships." "What about Earth? What about the billions of people living there?" "They don't care," Lisa said, quietly. "To them, we're just animals that happen to build things. They said we can evacuate if we want, but Earth belongs to them now." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "Did you tell them about our defensive capabilities? About our military?" Lisa almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I tried. Commander," Zexathara laughed at me. "He said they've studied our military through our television broadcasts and satellite communications. He called our weapons toys, and our strategies the fumbling of children." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he walked back to the bridge with Lisa following behind him. The alien ship was still there on the screen, dark and threatening. "Open a channel to their commander," Jake ordered. The crystal-faced alien appeared again, looking bored. "What do you want now, human? Have you decided to surrender your system without resistance?" Jake looked directly into those black eyes. "Commander, I want to give you one warning. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Humans don't just fight wars, we perfect them. We've been killing each other for thousands of years, and we've gotten very good at it." The alien's mouth opened wider, showing more of those sharp teeth. You threaten us? You with your primitive weapons and slow ships? I'm not threatening you, Jake said calmly. I'm trying to save your lives. You see our broadcasts and think you know us. But you only see the surface. You don't see what we really are underneath. And what are you underneath, little mammal? Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft but somehow more frightening than if he had shouted. We're the species that survived on a world where everything was trying to kill us. We're the species that turned warfare into an art form. We're the species that never, ever stops fighting until the threat is gone forever. The alien commander's eyes seemed to dim slightly, but then he straightened and his voice became harsh again. Empty words from a dying race. You have one of your planetary cycles to evacuate Earth. After that, we take what is ours. The screen went dark. Jake stood there for a moment, then turned to his communications officer. Send a message to Earth immediately. Tell them the NIGMA Empire is coming and we need to prepare for war. As the UES horizon turned toward home, Jake looked back at the alien fleet one more time. He hoped they would listen to reason. He hoped they would change their minds and leave Earth alone. But deep down, he knew they wouldn't. And that meant the NIGMA Empire was about to learn why you should never threaten humanity's home. The emergency message from Captain Jake Morrison reached Earth in 3 days. Admiral Kevin Hayes was eating breakfast when his phone started ringing with the special tone that meant the world was about to end. He answered it and listened as the voice on the other end told him that aliens were coming to destroy Earth. 20 minutes later, Kevin was in his car racing toward the Pentagon. By the time he arrived, every important person in the military was already there. The room was full of worried faces and tense voices. President Amanda Brooks stood at the front of the room looking tired but determined. She had been president for only 6 months, but she had dealt with wars and disasters before. This was just bigger than anything else she had faced. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, and the room went quiet. We have a situation. An alien empire called the NIGMA has given us 1 month to evacuate Earth. They plan to strip mine our planet and use it for their own purposes. We need to decide what we're going to do about it. General Robert King raised his hand. He was old and had fought in 4 different wars. Madam President, do we know how many ships they have? What kind of weapons? According to Captain Morrison's report, they have hundreds of ships, each one much larger than anything we've built. Their technology is far ahead of ours in most areas. The President paused. But we're not giving up our planet without a fight. Admiral Kevin Hayes stood up. Ma'am, I think it's time to activate the Terran Defense Initiative. The room got very quiet. Most of the people there had heard whispers about the TDI, but only a few knew what it really was. It was humanity's biggest secret, a project that had been running for 30 years. Dr. Susan Miller, please explain what we have, the President said. A woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. She had been working on secret military projects since she was 25 years old. For the past 3 decades, we've been preparing for exactly this scenario. We knew that when we went to the stars, we might meet someone who wanted to destroy us. She pressed a button, and the lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared showing Earth and the space around it. We have built several defensive systems. The first is our kinetic bombardment platforms. We have 200 satellites in orbit, each one carrying tungsten rods that can be dropped at incredible speeds. They hit with the force of nuclear weapons but leave no radiation. Red dots appeared on the display, showing where the satellites were hidden. We also have drone swarms controlled by artificial intelligence. Each swarm has 10,000 drones, and we have 50 swarms positioned throughout the solar system. The AI can control them all at once, making decisions faster than any human could. The display changed to show the outer edges of the solar system. We've also set up quantum communication networks, so our forces can talk to each other instantly. No matter how far apart they are, the enemy can't intercept or block these signals. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. What about ground forces? If they decide to invade instead of just destroying us? Dr. Miller smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. We've been studying human psychology and warfare for decades. We know things about fighting that no other species has ever had to learn. We've prepared weapons and tactics based on what makes humans so dangerous." She pressed another button, and the display showed soldiers in strange armor. "Our Terran Defense Corps has been training in secret bases around the world. They're equipped with adaptive camouflage, enhanced strength suits, and weapons that can change their function based on the situation. But more importantly, they've been trained to think like humans." Colonel Ryan Porter, a tall man with scars on his face, stood up. "What Dr. Miller means is that we've been training to fight like the predators we are. Other species might fight to win territory or resources. We fight to make the threat disappear forever." The president nodded. "What about Captain Ben Rodriguez?" "Where is he?" A voice came from the back of the room. "Right here, ma'am." Ben Rodriguez walked forward. He was smaller than the other military officers, but something about him made people step out of his way. "I've been working with resistance cells throughout human space. We have people ready to fight on every human colony and space station." "How many people are we talking about?" the president asked. "About 2 million volunteers, ma'am. Civilians who have been quietly training for years. Engineers who can turn mining equipment into weapons. Doctors who know how to keep fighters alive. Teachers who can coordinate communications. Regular people who are ready to do whatever it takes to protect their families." Dr. Miller brought up another display. "We also have psychological warfare capabilities. We've studied every alien species we've encountered, and we've learned that most of them are not used to the kind of violence humans are capable of. They fight with rules and honor. We fight to win." Admiral Hayes looked around the room. "There's something else, something we haven't told anyone about yet." He paused. "We've been monitoring alien broadcasts for years. We know how they think, how they communicate, how they make decisions. The NIGMA Empire follows very rigid patterns. They always attack the same way, they always use the same tactics. They can't adapt quickly to new situations." "And we can," Colonel Porter said. "That's what makes us dangerous. We don't just have better weapons or more ships. We have something they don't understand. We have the ability to change our entire approach in the middle of a battle." The president was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she looked around the room at all the faces watching her. "How long do we have?" Captain Morrison estimated 1 month before their main fleet arrives, Admiral Hayes said. "But we're already as ready as we're going to be. We've been preparing for this for 30 years. President Brooks nodded. "Then we fight. We show them that Earth is not just another planet to be conquered. We show them why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars." Dr. Miller pressed one more button and the display showed Earth surrounded by thousands of red dots. "Every satellite, every drone, every hidden weapon platform is ready. Our people are ready, our technology is ready." Colonel Porter stood up straighter. "Ma'am, I'd like permission to address the Terran Defense Corps. They need to know what's coming." "Granted," the president said. The colonel activated his communication device. "All units, this is Colonel Porter. Operation Home Guard is now active. The aliens are coming and they think we're easy prey. They think we're just another species to be conquered. They're about to learn why humans are the most dangerous thing to ever crawl out of a gravity well." Across the room, people were checking their weapons and preparing for battle. But there was no panic, no fear. There was only determination and a cold anger that had been building for 30 years. The NIGMA Empire had given humanity 1 month to surrender. They had no idea that humanity had spent 30 years preparing to show them what a real war looked like. High Commander Zexathara stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the small blue planet grow larger on his screen. Earth looked peaceful and helpless, just another world waiting to be conquered. Behind him, 300 NIGMA warships moved in perfect formation through space. "Commander," said his second-in-command, "we are detecting some small objects in the asteroid belt. They appear to be mining stations." Zexthera barely looked at the report. "Ignore them. Primitive human mining equipment poses no threat to our fleet. Continue toward the planet." What the NIGMA didn't know was that Captain Danny Walsh was watching them from inside one of those asteroids. He had been waiting there for 2 weeks with his team of engineers and soldiers. The asteroid looked normal from the outside, but inside it was hollow and filled with nuclear devices. Danny spoke quietly. into his communication device. All units, this is Rockhammer 1. The fish are in the net. Repeat, the fish are in the net. All around the asteroid belt, 200 similar asteroids came to life. Each one had been carefully hollowed out and packed with explosives. They were controlled by artificial intelligence that could calculate exactly when to detonate for maximum damage. The NIGMA fleet entered the asteroid belt at full speed, confident in their superior shields and armor. They had conquered 47 different species and never lost a single battle. They expected this to be just as easy. That's when the asteroids exploded. The first wave of explosions took out 30 NIGMA ships in 5 seconds. The blasts were perfectly timed and positioned to cause maximum destruction. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Who would fill asteroids with nuclear bombs and wait patiently for weeks to spring the trap? "What is happening?" Zexathera shouted as his ship shook from nearby explosions. "How are they controlling so many devices at once?" His communications officer was frantically working at his station. "Commander, the explosions are being coordinated by some kind of artificial intelligence. It's calculating the perfect timing for each blast. Our ships can't predict where the next attack will come from." More explosions rocked the fleet. The NIGMA ships were strong, but they had never faced an enemy that would sacrifice entire asteroids just to destroy a few ships. It seemed wasteful and insane, but the humans were just getting started. Major Elena Santos waited inside a small stealth ship near the edge of the battle. She commanded a team of space marines who specialized in boarding enemy vessels. While the Hydod NIGMA were confused by the asteroid explosions, Elena's team moved in close to the alien ships. "Remember," Elena told her marines through their helmet radios, "these aliens think in straight lines. They follow rules and patterns. We don't. Use that against them." The marines used cutting tools to break into the NIGMA ships through weak points that the aliens had never thought to protect. Once inside, they moved through the ships like ghosts, using tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. The NIGMA were used to honorable combat between warriors. They expected their enemies to announce themselves and fight face to face. Instead, the human marines appeared from ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels. They used smoke grenades to confuse the aliens and sound devices to make them panic. On one NIGMA ship, Sergeant Mike Thompson disabled the artificial gravity and then attacked while the aliens were floating helplessly in the air. On another ship, Corporal Lisa Brown used the ship's own fire suppression system to flood compartments with foam, blinding the defenders. But the real surprise was yet to come. Engineer Tony Clark sat in a hidden facility on Earth's moon, watching the battle through dozens of cameras. His job was to control Earth satellites and communication networks. But Tony had a special surprise waiting for the NIGMA fleet. "Activating neural interference protocol," Tony said into his headset. All around Earth, hidden satellites began broadcasting a special signal. Tony and his team had spent years studying alien broadcasts and had discovered something interesting about the NIGMA. Their crystal-like bodies contained natural radio receivers that helped them communicate with each other. The signal that Tony broadcast was designed to interfere with those natural receivers. It didn't hurt the aliens, but it made them confused and scared. Suddenly, NIGMA crew members couldn't think clearly. Their coordination broke down and their ships began making mistakes. Commander Zexathera felt the effects immediately. His thoughts became fuzzy and he couldn't concentrate on the battle. All around him, his crew members were stumbling and making errors. "What is this?" he demanded. "What are they doing to us?" His science officer was holding his head in his 4 hands. "Commander, they are broadcasting some kind of neural disruption field. It's affecting our natural communication abilities. We can't think properly." The battle was turning into a disaster for the NIGMA. Their perfect formation was breaking apart. Their ships were crashing into each other. Their weapons were firing at empty space because the gunners couldn't focus properly. Captain Joe Martinez saw his chance. He commanded a small human destroyer that had been hiding behind Earth's moon. His ship was tiny compared to the NIGMA vessels, but Joe had a plan that was so crazy it might actually work. "All crew, prepare for ramming speed," Joe announced over the ship's intercom. His crew thought he had lost his mind. Ramming attacks were suicide missions. No sane commander would order his ship to crash into an enemy vessel. But Joe wasn't planning to ram the NIGMA flagship normally. His ship was carrying a special weapon that had never been tested in combat. It was a device that could create a small black hole for just a few seconds. Joe's ship accelerated directly toward the NIGMA flagship. The aliens saw him coming and tried to shoot him down, but their confused gunners kept missing. At the last second, Joe activated the black hole device and ejected in an escape pod. The tiny black hole lasted for only 3 seconds, but that was enough to tear the massive NIGMA flagship apart from the inside. The explosion was so bright that it could be seen from Earth without a telescope. Watching from his ship at the edge of the battle, Admiral Kevin Hayes couldn't believe what he was seeing. The mighty NIGMA fleet was being destroyed by tactics that no military academy had ever taught. The humans weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting like the predators they had always been. The remaining NIGMA ships tried to retreat, but the human forces followed them. Captain Ben Rodriguez's resistance fighters had positioned ships throughout the solar system, and they attacked the fleeing aliens from every direction. By the end of the day, only 50 NIGMA ships remained out of the original 300. They limped away from Earth's solar system, broadcasting desperate messages to their empire. High Commander Zex Thara, now aboard a damaged cruiser instead of his destroyed flagship, sent a message to NIGMA High Command. His voice was shaking with fear and confusion. "The humans are not what we thought," he said. "They fight like demons. They use tactics that make no sense. They sacrifice their own people and equipment just to cause us harm. We cannot defeat them with conventional warfare." But the humans weren't done with them yet. The real war was just beginning. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Wood sat in the communications center deep under the Rocky Mountains, listening to alien radio signals. Her job was to intercept NIGMA messages and translate them for the human military. What she was hearing made her blood run cold. "Admiral Hayes, you need to hear this," Rachel said into her headset. On her screen were dozens of intercepted messages from the retreating NIGMA fleet. Admiral Kevin Hayes appeared on her video screen a few minutes later. His face was tired, but satisfied after the victory in Earth's solar system. "What do you have?" "For me, Commander?" Rachel played back the alien transmissions. Even through the translation software, the panic in the NIGMA voices was clear. "Sir, they're terrified. Listen to this message from their fleet commander to their home world." The alien voice was shaky and desperate. "High Command, we have suffered massive losses. The humans fight with no honor, no rules. They sacrifice their own people just to kill a few of our warriors. They use weapons that make no sense. They attack from directions we never expected. We cannot predict their movements." Another message played. This one was from a NIGMA ship captain to his crew. "Prepare for jump to hyperspace. We must retreat immediately. The humans are not a primitive species. They are something else entirely, something dangerous." Admiral Hayes listened to message after message. Each one told the same story. The mighty NIGMA Empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was running away from Earth in complete panic. "There's more, sir," Rachel said. "We're picking up communications from other parts of their empire. Word is spreading about what happened here. Other NIGMA fleets are being warned to stay away from human space." Meanwhile, on the surface, Dr. Patricia Johnson was studying the battle data in her laboratory. Patricia had spent 20 years studying human psychology and warfare. She had helped design many of the tactics that had just defeated the NIGMA fleet. Patricia called President Amanda Brooks with her analysis. "Madam President, I think we need to understand what just happened here. This wasn't just a military victory. This was a demonstration of something much more important." "What do you mean?" the President asked. "The NIGMA evolved on a world where cooperation meant survival. Their species learned to work together, follow rules, and fight in organized groups. It made them strong enough to build an empire." Patricia paused, looking at the data on her screen. "But we evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us." The President was quiet, waiting for Patricia to continue. "Earth is what scientists call a death world, ma'am. Most planets that support life are gentle places where species evolve slowly and peacefully. Earth is different. We had ice ages, volcanic eruptions, Earthquakes, storms, predators, diseases, and 1,000 other things trying to kill us every day. Patricia brought up images of Earth's history on her computer. Humans didn't just survive on Earth. We became the top predator. We learned to hunt in groups, to use tools to adapt to any environment. But most importantly, we learned to fight not just to win, but to make threats disappear forever. And the NIGMA never learned that? President Brooks asked. No, ma'am. They fight to conquer, to gain territory, to expand their empire. When they face serious resistance, they retreat and find easier targets. But humans fight to extinct. When something threatens our survival, we don't stop until the threat is completely eliminated. On board the human destroyer UES Liberty, Captain Joe Martinez was recovering from his successful suicide mission against the NIGMA flagship. He had ejected in an escape pod just before his ship created the black hole that destroyed the alien command vessel. Joe was being treated by Dr. Sarah Wells, the ship's medical officer. While she bandaged his injuries, Joe watched the tactical displays showing the retreating alien fleet. Doctor, can I ask you something? Joe said. Of course, Captain. Do you think we're monsters? What we did out there using tactics that the aliens think are insane and dishonorable? Dr. Wells was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question. Captain, do you know what the difference is between a wolf and a sheep? No. What? The sheep thinks the wolf is evil because it kills to eat, but the wolf doesn't think about good and evil. It just does what it needs to do to survive. She finished wrapping his arm. We're not monsters, Captain, we're predators. And when someone threatens our pack, we do what predators do. Back on the NIGMA homeworld, High Command was receiving reports from their defeated fleet. Supreme Commander Vorthak, the leader of the entire NIGMA empire, read the reports with growing disbelief. This cannot be accurate, he said to his advisors. 300 ships defeated by a single primitive world? It's impossible. His intelligence officer, Sub-Commander Kelthan, stepped forward. Supreme Commander, we have reviewed all the data, multiple times. The humans use tactics we have never encountered. They seem to know exactly how we would respond to every situation. How is that possible? We believe they have been studying us for many years, learning our patterns and weaknesses. But more than that, they think differently than we do. They don't follow the normal rules of warfare. Supreme Commander Vorthak looked at the tactical displays showing the locations of NIGMA fleets throughout the galaxy. Send orders to all fleets. Human space is forbidden. No NIGMA vessel is to approach their territory under any circumstances. Sir, what about our expansion plans? The humans control several systems that we need for our empire. Vorthak was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. Find other systems. There are billions of stars in the galaxy. We don't need to fight the humans. His advisor looked confused. But sir, we are the NIGMA Empire. We have never retreated from any species before. That was before we met a species that fights to extinct instead of fighting to conquer. Vorthak turned away from the displays. Send messages to all our allies and trading partners. Tell them to avoid human space. Tell them the humans are not like other species. They are something else entirely. Back on Earth, the victory celebrations were beginning. But in the secret military facilities, the planning was continuing. Admiral Hayes, Dr. Miller, Colonel Porter, and the other leaders knew that this was just the beginning. They'll be back, Admiral Hayes said at the strategy meeting. Maybe not the NIGMA, but someone else. Word will spread that we defeated a major empire. Other species will want to test us. Dr. Miller nodded. But now we know something important. We know that our way of thinking, our way of fighting, gives us an advantage that no other species expects. Colonel Porter stood up and looked around the room. Then we keep preparing, we keep getting stronger, and we make sure that every species in the galaxy understands one simple truth. What's that? President Brooks asked. That humans are the most dangerous thing to ever come out of a gravity well. And anyone who threatens our home will learn why we survived long enough to reach the stars. The war was far from over, but humanity had learned something important about itself. They were not just another species trying to survive in the galaxy. They were apex predators, and the galaxy was about to find out what that really meant. 6 months after the first battle, Admiral Carl Thompson stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance and watched the last NIGMA stronghold through his ship's cameras. The alien fortress was built into an asteroid and protected by the remaining ships of their once mighty fleet. Carl had been promoted after the victory at Earth. Now he commanded a fleet of 50 human ships, all filled with volunteers who wanted to finish what the NIGMA had started. The aliens had tried to destroy humanity's HOMSA. Now humanity was going to make sure they could never threaten anyone again. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the NIGMA fortress," said Communications Officer Linda Martinez. "Put it through," Carl said. The screen showed a familiar face. High Commander Zexthara looked much older than he had during their first meeting. His crystal skin was cracked and dull, and his forearms shook slightly as he spoke. "Admiral Thompson, I wish to surrender my remaining forces to you. We cannot continue this fight. Your species has destroyed everything we built over 1,000 years." Carl looked at the alien commander for a long moment. "Commander, you had your chance to leave us alone. Captain Morrison warned you what would happen if you threatened Earth. You chose not to listen. We made a mistake," Zexthara said, his voice breaking. "We thought you were like the other species we had conquered. We didn't understand what humans really are." "And what are we?" Carl asked. The alien was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "You are the end of everything. You don't fight wars. You fight extinctions." Behind Carl, his crew was preparing for the final assault. These weren't professional soldiers like the ones who had defended Earth. These were ordinary people who had volunteered to hunt down the aliens who had threatened their families. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, and shop owners who had learned to operate warships and fight in space. Sergeant Tom Wilson, a former construction worker from Texas, was checking his rifle for the boarding action. Next to him, Dr. Mary Clark, a IDR veterinarian from Oregon, was preparing medical supplies for the wounded. They didn't look like warriors, but they had something the NIGMA had never encountered. They had the determination of people fighting to protect their children. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "we're detecting movement in the NIGMA fleet. It looks like they're trying to escape." Carl smiled coldly. "Begin pursuit. Don't let any of them reach hyperspace." The human fleet moved forward like a pack of wolves hunting wounded prey. The NIGMA ships tried to run, but human technology had improved during the 6 months of war. The humans had studied captured alien technology and made their own ships faster and more deadly. Captain Jenny Roberts, commanding the destroyer UES Relentless, caught up with a fleeing NIGMA cruiser. Instead of simply destroying it, she used a new weapon that her engineers had developed. It was a device that could shut down alien ships without killing the crew. "NIGMA vessel. This is Captain Roberts. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to resist will result in your destruction." The alien ship stopped running. Jenny's Marines boarded the vessel and found something surprising. The NIGMA crew was not trying to fight. They were huddled in their quarters, too terrified to resist. "Captain," reported Marine Lieutenant Pete Anderson over the radio, "these aliens are completely broken. They keep asking us not to kill them. They're saying that humans are demons from the void." Similar scenes were playing out across the battle zone. The once proud NIGMA Empire had been reduced to a handful of terrified survivors who no longer had the will to fight. On Earth, President Amanda Brooks was addressing the Galactic Council for the first time. The Council was a group of alien species that governed trade and diplomacy between the stars. They had never invited humans to join before, but things had changed. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of different alien species. Most of them looked nervous as the human president walked to the speaking platform. "Honored delegates," President Brooks began, "I come before you today to discuss the former NIGMA Empire and its territories." A representative from the Zalari Republic, a species that looked like tall, thin birds, stood up. "President Brooks, we have heard disturbing reports about human military actions. Some say your species fights without honor or mercy." President Brooks looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. "We fight to protect our families and our home. When the NIGMA threatened to destroy Earth and kill billions of innocent people, We responded the only way we knew. How? By completely destroying their empire? Asked another delegate. By making sure they could never threaten anyone again, President Brooks replied calmly. The NIGMA Empire conquered and enslaved 47 different species over the past 1,000 years. They stripped entire worlds of resources and treated other intelligent beings like animals. We ended that. An elderly alien who looked like a walking tree spoke up. But at what cost? You have eliminated an entire civilization. President Brooks was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but somehow more frightening than if she had shouted. The cost of not acting would have been higher. The NIGMA would have continued to spread across the galaxy, destroying worlds and enslaving species. We stopped them. And now you control their former territory? Asked the bird-like alien. We protect it, President Brooks corrected. The former NIGMA slave worlds are now free to govern themselves. We have established trade agreements and mutual defense pacts with them. They are partners, not subjects. The chamber was completely silent as the delegates thought about what the human president had said. Finally, the elderly tree-like alien spoke again. What assurance do we have that humanity will not become the next empire to threaten the galaxy? President Brooks smiled, but it was not a warm smile. Because we don't want an empire. We want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. But if anyone threatens our home or our allies, they will learn what the NIGMA learned. And what is that? Asked the delegate. That humans are very good at war. We've had thousands of years of practice. Back in space, Admiral Carl Thompson was watching the last NIGMA ship surrender. The war was over. The empire that had threatened Earth was gone forever, scattered to the winds or absorbed into the growing alliance of free worlds under human protection. Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, joined Carl on the bridge. He had been the one to deliver the original warning to the NIGMA. Now he was here to see the end of their empire. Do you think we did the right thing? Jake asked. Carl looked out at the stars where human ships now patrolled to keep the peace. Jake, they came to our home planning to kill everyone we loved. They thought we were weak because we were different. They learned that being different doesn't mean being weak. And now? Now the galaxy knows what happens when you threaten humanity. Word will spread to every species among the stars. They'll remember the NIGMA Empire and what happened to them. Carl turned to look at his old friend. Maybe that will be enough to keep the peace. As the human fleet turned toward home, carrying news of their final victory, a message was being broadcast across the galaxy. It was a simple message, but it would be remembered for generations. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Human Space Force. To all species listening to this transmission, we offer you friendship and trade. We want to live in peace among the stars. But remember what happened to the NIGMA Empire. We offered them the same friendship. They chose war instead. We are very good at war. The message ended with words that would become humanity's motto among the stars. We offered you friendship. You chose war. We are very good at war. And across the galaxy, alien civilizations heard those words and decided that friendship with humanity was a very good idea indeed.